What's up, guys? This is Saiyan here, coming at you with our final Death World Cycle pack opening against the great enemy, Warhammer Conquest. Let's jump right into it. So, obviously, you guys have stumbled upon this with some level of interest for 40k Conquest. If you guys are interested, I have the other 5 Warpacks open from the Death World cycle on this channel as well. So if you're interested, check out those videos as well. Against the great enemy though, we are going to see a Warlord for Eldar, and we're going to see a couple more interesting cards that we're going to go over, see whether they can be used potentially somewhere or not. As usual, we got our little front cover, and again, those of you will appreciate that this is an unopened pack. There's a couple of people who helped me to get this Warpack finally purchased, so thanks for everybody who sort of got in touch with me or gave me a comment on Facebook or anything else. And of course, as usual, we get our little backstory about Jane Zar this time, and we get an explanation around the deep strike mechanic, which is the main mechanic of this final cycle that was released for the game. Unfortunately, this was the final cycle release for the game. So immediately to start with, we're starting to see some signature unit for Jane Zar. So let's crack open this pack and get through the stuff that's in there. I do have the trusty scissors on standby, so let's actually crack the guy out. Doesn't get enough appreciation nowadays. There you go, trusty scissors, you can show yourself off whilst opening gently this Warpack. The blue means it's English language, if you didn't know. There you go. So, let's start with Jane Zar, because her signatures are on the top. We got a little scan thingy to see what the cards are inside, usual stuff. And we'll put the rest to the side for a little bit. So first of all, Jane Zar, Phoenix Lord Warrior traits there for this Eldar Warlord. A 2/6 stat. Actually, I don't have a problem with the 2/6s as long as you can sort of have some form of a combat trick to kind of defend them or something, or well, you're just going to obviously retreat with them if the ground starts to be a bit too shaky. She has an interrupt effect or ability. Let's call it an ability, an interrupt ability. When your opponent targets a unit you control, all at this planet with a triggered effect, cancel that effect. Limit once per round. So once per combat round, you in effect get a kind of a negate effect. Well, a triggered effect can be obviously a bunch of different things. So Jane Zar is actually a warlord that protects really well by the, at least that's how it looks on the surface. So let's see her signature units. I'm assuming Jane Zars are her. I might be wrong there actually. But we got 4 2/2 Banshee Assault Squad Warriors. Let me just get the light in there a little bit more. So we got a 2-cost 2/2 warrior, and with the reaction after you cancel a card effect, put this into play from your hand at a planet. So basically, whenever Jane Zar does a cancel effect, you can play one of these Banshee Assault Squad guys. Well, not just the one, basically, as many as you got in your hand. Put this into play from your hand at a planet. any planet, so it's not defined. These guys can go anywhere. Now you are kind of taking them out of the command game, but they basically work like an eager recruit or work like an Elysium Assault team for Eldar. So that's generally not a bad thing. The warrior trait can be useful for certain attachments as well. So it's actually a fairly decent, well, not very strong, but if we think that, compare this to Elysium Assault Squad or Eager Recruit, you actually get an extra health point on these guys. So on the surface, it looks decent. I actually quite like these so far on the first look. Again, guys, this is first look. I deliberately have been avoiding looking at all these cards so I can give you guys my first impressions. Jane's signature event is Storm of Silence, a 2-cost event, 1 shield, and it's a power event with an interrupt. When a card effect targets a unit, cancel that effect. If the targeted unit was a unit you control, ready or warlord. So really, to me, so far it seems that Jane's is very much about trying to sort of control, shut down card effects. You probably would want to include nullifies in this deck as well. I think that would suit this kind of playstyle really well. And the generally controlling looking, just benefit of. Um, all these different shutdown effects, shutdown events with nullify as well. It can be actually a pretty good little deck. Her signature support is intercept. 2-cost support. Okay, well that cost isn't like the greatest, but let's see what the so we got a reaction here. After your opponent targets a single unit with a card effect, exhaust the support to cancel the target of that effect to a target unit you control. So, if your opponent has like a buff or something, you can actually redirect that to your own guys. That actually can be also a very good little tempo play to get stuff in your advantage. The problem with this card is that it's a support, so your opponent is going to see it coming. But again, you only have to carry one of this card in your deck, and there will be situations where this intercept, if it's out, can be useful. I don't see this being particularly the reason why you would want to play Jane's. And then finally, her signature attachment. 1 cost, obviously 3 shields, as we're used to. The Mask of Jane's limit 1 relic per player. This is obviously being a relic. Attached to your Warlord. After an enemy unit at this planet triggers an ability, deal 1 damage to that unit. So this is where I kind of see Shrieking Exarch coming into the play. This is where I see the same Jet Bike coming into the game a little bit. So not only can we manipulate the board with shutting down triggered abilities, countering events, we can also start to ping quite a lot and you sort of shut down the larger guys and the more disrupting events and ping the smaller guys if your opponent's trying to go for like win commands and stuff like that. So overall, I think the package is pretty good. I think the package is a good starting point for kind of a different style of Eldar deck. I really don't know whether this is better than Eldorath or not. Eldorath is just such a strong warlord, and his attire is so powerful as well. Eldorath's Council is just a really good card, honestly. But this kind of brings the gameplay to a different, to sort of like a more controlling rather than tapping them, actually shutting down triggered effects. And in all fairness, there are a lot of triggered effects in the game. So being able to shut one down per combat round, it can be quite big. It can be quite big. So yeah, I'll be interested to like dig into this a little bit more and see what sort of cards fit in here and what cards don't. Let's move on to the actual cards for the other factions as well, and we're gonna start with Space Marines. We only got 2 cards for Space Marines. We got a playset of well, there will be playsets. Dark Angels Vindicator. This is a Dark Angels tank. It's not loyal, so you can run it in Maxim, I guess. Don't really know why there aren't like more. Perhaps we see another good Astra Militarum tank in here, but let's see what it does. No war gear attachments. While you control, while this unit is attacking, it gets +2 attack for each command icon on the defender has. So this is quite similar to the Iron Hands sort of tech reliquary. I think that guy also gets, although I think he gets extra icons or something like that. Yeah, he kind of like matches the icons. Sort of, kind of, somewhat a similar vein, I guess. It's not the worst unit, but the 4 slot is always a difficult one in my eyes, particularly for Space Marines, because you can't drop pod. They're not quite an elite. It's like that fringe kind of slot there for Space Marines. The 5 health is good actually, and the fact that it's not loyal, then obviously yes, you can run these guys in Maxim, because obviously he cares about tanks. So I can kind of see this guy doing double duty, and maybe that's why it only got the 1/5 treatment. Although, to be fair, the larger a guy this goes up against, the more attacks he will have. So if it goes up against, I don't know, somebody who's got a promotion, for example, then immediately, just if promotion was played to like kind of beat your two hammer guy, then this is looking at +6 attack. So actually, it's not that bad now that I'm starting to think about this a little bit more. But obviously, it is situational, going up against guys that don't have any command icons, going up against like I don't know, Vicious Bloodletter, for example. This guy is only going to deal 1 damage. It's not gonna get the job done. I can kind of see like, okay, kind of fits into either decks, but I also kind of see that it kind of fits into neither. It's an option. It's an option. I think that's the main thing to remember with the Death World cycle, is that we got a lot of options that no one's really going to play. Okay, a cool looking card here, Imperial Power Fist, 2 cost attachment, 1 shield. It's a war gear weapon, can only be attached to an army unit. And while each other unit you control at this planet is exhausted, attached unit gets +5 attack. This with an ambush platform would be ridiculous. Last moment, when your last guy is standing, you ambush platform out this Imperial Power Fist and give that one guy +5 attack. That's huge. That there I can see this being really good. Otherwise, your opponent's just gonna play around this. It's very simple. Like you would have to either throw it to another unit with even the odds, or you would have to ambush platform it out with the Tau support. Okay, moving on to Astra Militarum. Again, we got 2 cards. We get the Katachan Tracker. It's a 3 cost 2/3 with 1 command icon. It's not loyal. It's got the soldier trait. Increase the deep strike value of each card your opponent controls at this planet by 2. As such, what if your opponent doesn't play with deep strike? I mean, what are the chances that many decks would play with deep strike? And I mean, obviously, if the game went longer and other factions got proper deep strike warlords, kind of along the lines with Vezuel, then I could see Catachan Tracker being a thing. But without a side deck, this card I don't see this card really ever seeing play. I mean, there's that fringe situation where you might need it, but I think Astra Militarum has a lot of lower cost cards that will hit better than this guy for 2, and the effect is quite niche. That's a bit of a disappointment there. And we get 3 0 cost events. That's looking good. Death serves the Emperor. A 0 cost event with 1 shield with an interrupt effect. When a vehicle unit you control is destroyed, gain resources equal to its printed cost, and you can play maximum 1 per round. So this is kind of the Gotten Pillage, I guess, for Maxim, for the Vostroya guys. Or if somebody feels the need to build a vehicle deck with not Maxim, I guess it's possible, then this is definitely an auto include, but I think this is most of the card for Maxim. Yeah, it's okay. It's an interrupt. It doesn't cost anything. It can get you so you get the money back. You don't get extra resources. You get the money back that you've already invested into one of those vehicles already. I don't know how many low cost vehicles there are for Vor or Cotillas that would maybe warrant playing this card. I don't really see much, and anyway, they tend to play extremely low cost units, so this definitely would be more useful for your tank brigade. Right, let's move on to Orcs. We got 2 cards for the Orcs, and one of them is a Deep Strike unit, the Suit Blade Assassin. So this guy, on the face, it's a 4 cost, 1 command icon, 3/3 soldier, but you can Deep Strike it for 2, so you will probably play it for 3 overall cost. The art is cool. I don't have any issues with the art. I think it looks actually pretty sweet. It's not loyal, that's a good thing. And it's got reaction after you Deep Strike this unit. Have your opponent deal 2 indirect damage among exhausted units he controls at this planet. So you kind of have to anticipate where your opponent's gonna come out if you see that they have a Warlord train, and then you can sort of kind of punish them a little bit, but obviously it's down to them how they are going to deal the 2 indirect damage around. There's a little bit of value there, I suppose, and it can be good if there is like those 1 health kind of Void Pirates, Rogue Traders, other weedy command units that got stuck in your opponent's Warlord's train. But otherwise, there's perhaps setting up a little bit there for some extra damage. Bring out a guy that can deal extra damage to them and then finish them off. So there's potential in the card. To be fair, the Orcs, they're not like super hot on the whole Deep Strike thing. There's a couple of decent cards they got to Deep Strike. I think this is probably one of the more reasonable cards to Deep Strike with. You're not gonna play this card for 4 as a 3/3 1 command icon card. That's for sure. You either Deep Strike this guy or it's not worth really running it in your deck. And then we get Repulsor Minefield. A 2 cost attachment, 1 shield for the Orcs, but really again a Deep Strike for 1. So it actually costs exactly the same as attaching it straight up the bat. It is attached to a planet and has a force reaction. After an army unit is declared as an attacker at this planet, deal it 1 damage. This is a good card. I think this is a good card because you don't have to play it as Deep Strike. That's always a big thing with these particular cards, is that, actually, if I just straight up play it as a 2-cost attachment and put it on a planet, I'm not losing out on it. The force reaction works. Um, Whether you don't need to deep strike it like the Suit Blade Assassin, and it's just straight up after an army unit is declared as an attacker at this point, dealing 1 damage. Works really well for orcs, particularly. Obviously, this is designed for brutal decks, perhaps with Nasdrag. Kind of seeing an orc chaos brutal deck here. You might want to run that, but you can just run this in chaos as well, like Chaos Warlord, where you might want to do like Zerathur, for example, dealing 1 damage, making that damage an extra one. It can be really good. So this is a very good card, actually. I think Repulsor Minefield would be something I would definitely play in an orc deck, a brutal orc deck particularly, so I gain some benefit from it. But it's also good to, like, again, just ping the opponent's units, and you're not losing out by not deep striking it. You can for that surprise value, but you don't have to do it. Right, let's move on to Chaos, and we got 3 cards here for Chaos. We got the Sickening Hellbrute, 7 cost, 2/9 elite unit with 2 command. It has brutal. There you go. It goes with the repulsor minefield. Again, it's not loyal, so it can just be splashed into your orc deck, or you can splash the repulsor minefield into the chaos deck here. And kind of does the opposite to the repulsor minefield. Force reaction after a unit at this planet is declared as a defender, deal 1 damage to it. So there's like a little, okay, there's a reason why they put these 2 cards into the same Warpack, so you kind of see the synergy with the 2. When one of your guys, when he attacks, he gets a damage, but then whoever is defending will get a damage, and then you're gonna hit them for another 2, or probably 3 actually. If you got the minefield out, you're gonna be immediately hitting them for 3 because you got the brutal. So this escalates super quick. If you can get the Sickening Hellbrute to stand up, to be able to swing again, extra another ping to the Hellbrute, another damage for the brutal. You're then now dealing another damage to the defender, so you can very quickly get to the bottom of larger units. That's a cool unit. I like this unit. Obviously, it needs to be in a more specific deck. It's not like um, uh, your Hellfire Drake that can pretty much go into any Chaos deck. If you can cough up the was it 8 cost, you probably can do that with Cultists and STC. This obviously puts the direction this into that brutal deck that I was just talking about. This is a very good elite for that kind of setup. I don't know if anyone's built a deck around that. I can definitely see some inspiration to do so. We got another Chaos unit here. This is a 4-cost Chaos unit, 2 command icons. It's a 3/4 unit, a soldier for Slaanesh, and again, not loyal, so that's good. Wouldn't interrupt when your opponent deploys a non-elite unit at this planet, increases cost by 2. So kind of cool. Kind of cool, making stuff more expensive. Imagine if you kind of get one of these guys out to one of the planets that you just want to control. You want to get the resources of it, unless your opponent runs an elite heavy deck, which would anyway take quite potentially the control away from you. Many of the elite guys will have more than 2 hammers. Obviously, it depends what they play, of course, yeah, but there's a possibility that they can at least match you, so nobody wins anything. But if they try to, Rogue Trader, they won't. Well, no one's gonna play a Rogue Trader for 3, for 3 credits. Nobody's gonna play a what's the Tau recon drone? Is it the recon drone? The 0 cost limited. No one's gonna play that for 2. So this Purveyor of Hubris just basically will run that planet unless your opponent has um, elites to put there and try and win the command. That's a really good card, actually. I quite like this. And the fact that it's not loyal, again, just allows you to put this into an Orc deck, put this into Dark Eldar deck. It's actually really good that it's not really limited by that factor. So that's a pretty sweet card, in my humble opinion. And then we get Cloud of Flies. Cloud of Flies is a 1-cost attachment for Chaos Blessing, actually. Interesting. I like that little kind of joke there. Attached to a Nurgle army unit you control. So this goes to your Nurgle deck. Reaction after a combat round begins at this planet. Each player deals 2 indirect damage among non-Nurgle units he controls at this planet if able. I mean, this is absolutely fantastic for a Nurgle deck. Or if you got guys that you run in this deck for any reason, you would want them killed that are non-Nurgle and you can, profit of that, then by all means, again, this is your card. But the fact is that this stays on your Nurgle unit, and every time you send a guy out, even if he gets stuck in the Warlord train, this is going to go out every time a combat round begins at this planet. Each player deals 2 indirect damage among non-Nurgle units he controls at this planet if able. I can see this being absolutely rude with the Sickening Hellbrood. Look, this guy is a Nurgle. I can see this absolutely brutal with the Repulsor Mines. So you haven't even, before you even attack, you're gonna ping 2. I can kind of now see where the Sootblade Assassin comes in, because that also does the ping 2, ping 2, ping 2. This guy will so combat round begins. When a battle begins, I don't know if you have the ability to which one you need to activate first, but even if you have to activate him from Deep Strike, he will survive. You just put your damage on your Sickening. Oh, you can't put it because it's a Nurgle. Still can survive 2 damage and then be able to go out. This guy just deal a bunch of damage. There's definitely something in there that can be exploited quite well. I actually am starting to enjoy looking at these cards in this Warpack. It's definitely one of the stronger Warpacks. And then we looked at Purveyor of Hubris already. Okay, now we have 2 cards for Dark Eldar. We have Kabbalite Blackguard, Warrior Kabbalite, so obvious which deck you want to put this in. No command icons, it's not great, but you still get a 2/3 buddy for 2. With a reaction after you win a battle at this planet, take up to 2 resources from your opponent. It's also loyal, and kind of the reaction explains the lack of command icons, because actually, you know what? I'll let you win. I'm gonna make sure you got resources, and then if I can win the battle, then I will take 2 resources with that. It's a very Dark Eldar unit. It's not bad. It's not great either. I mean, ultimately, what we see is an obvious inclusion for your Archon Sailor Moon deck, because obviously she cares about both warriors and Kabbalites, so he's immediately hitting the boxes there. Get some of that good resource choking going on that Dark Eldar is really good at. It's a decent card. I mean, it's not the best card, but then there aren't too many gray cards for the 2 slot in Dark Eldar. Certainly not many stuff that you get 3 health on in the 2 slot either. So there's a good chance this guy is gonna survive the battle, and then that's obvious. That's basically a 4 resource swing, which is pretty big. I'm gonna say this is definitely a card that has a lot of potential in it. And then we get Abomination Workshop. Abomination Workshop, location 2 cost support, and headquarters action sacrifices support to have each player discard cards from his hand until he has cards equal to or less than the highest printed cost among units he controls. Well, basically, you have to sacrifice the support, so you don't really get the. It's like it's an event card that you have to put out. You can't use it as a shield, and this is the idea is that this is supposed to punish elite decks. So when your opponent's got like a big elite out 5, 6, 7, 8 cost, you put this out for 2. If you're running your usual sort of low to the ground Kith deck, then I could see this. I could see this doing work. If you don't have the Chaos Beast out, or you don't have the Assassin out, the ambush guy, then it can do some decent job. Yeah, definitely. But it's very circumstantial. If this was an event with 1 shield, even if it still said headquarters action and everything, and it was an event, imagine if this was a torture. This really should have been a torture card. This could have actually potentially made Uriel a little bit more playable. If this was a torture card for Uriel, that would be a good consideration to play this. If this was an event for 2, with all the effect that's on the card, then it would be brilliant. Maybe even a 3 cost. Yeah, make it a 3 cost. So Uriel's gonna make it a 2 cost, and then do the whole thing. Then it would be amazing. In this form, I guess the artwork looks amazing. I think the artwork's really cool. Let's move on. Okay, we got Tau coming up, and we have both cards with Deep Strike. So we have the XV25 Stealth Squad. On the face, it's a 5 cost army unit, no command icons. It's a 5/3. It's Soldier, Pilot, Elite. You can Deep Strike it for 3. And you can Deep Strike this card as an action during the combat phase. Whew. What do you do with this card? It's actually not bad. This is like your Eager Recruit on steroids. I mean, I could see this card in a Vezuel deck where you are running the 3 Eager Recruits, because you're gonna draw into them probably, and you only really want to like Deep Strike. You kind of put down a bunch of like low cost Deep Strike units, but you kind of hide the Stealth Squad between them, and then when the thing is that once you play this is a one-trick pony, because there are no other units that can be deep struck during the action as an action during the combat phase. So you do it once, your opponent's going to be thinking, oh, okay, he couldn't pay for the deep strike, whatever, and then you do, and then that's it. You've done it, and it's great. It's probably going to feel amazing that you got a 5/3 out now. But you can only really do this one. Second time, it's not going to be a surprise, and your opponent's going to be probably prepared for it. It's an elite, yeah, okay, that's good. You can probably use that to your advantage. So there's definitely a bunch of cards that obviously won't work on this guy because he is an elite. But it's a 5/3 with no commands for 5. If you don't deep strike it again, you kind of have to deep strike this to get the value out. Otherwise, it's a really weak card, and even then, it's a one-trick pony, so not the greatest. And our other final Tau card is an attachment. On the face, a 2 cost with 1 shield. It's a war gear and it's a crude card. But you can deep strike it for free, so you can play it 1 cheaper if you deep strike it. And it must be attached to an army unit you control. And as a reaction, after a attached unit destroys an enemy unit by an attack, you gain 1 resource. Typical crude stuff. I just really wish we would have gotten a crude warlord. That would have been really cool to get a crude warlord. I'm sure that must have had one designed. I mean, we've gotten so many crew cards. There must have been some form of a crude warlord in the making by FFG. It's just a shame that we never got to see it. Is it a good card? I think so. Yeah, it can definitely. It adds so the Tau got actually. I think they got the second most deep strike cards. It's either Tau or Eld. I think it's Tau to kind of so you're able to support the Vezuel from the Tau side. That's clearly what they've intended in doing. Now, if you run this in a Vezuel deck, and after a tag unit destroys an enemy unit by an attack, you gain one extra. You gain 1 resource. This actually complements really well the ability of Vezuel that you draw a card every time you deep strike. So you deep strike this guy or deep strike this attachment, put it onto one of your Space Marines. That Space Marine, when he destroys an enemy unit by an attack, you gain 1 resource. Now you're making money to be able to pay for your future deep strikes. I think this is probably in contention with the jetpack. I can see this actually being run over the jetpack just to make more money. That's definitely what my take is on this one. It's not a bad card. It definitely does something cool. But again, it's the question of, well, your opponent can shield against it, so your opponent can stop it. You kind of have to be able to like have an overwhelming hit with it to be able to get it across. Now, if this crude hunting rifle had the ability of the stealth squad that you can deploy it as an action in the combat phase, it would be absolutely amazing, because then you can drop put somebody in, and then you could go and activate it, put it on the guy you just drop put it in. You can't do that. I guess you could ambush platform it. That's still an option. That probably would be the avenue perhaps to take if you're happy to give up the that Vezuel support that pings 1 every time you deep strike, because I think that's actually a pretty good support for Vezuel. Okay, well, I think it's a good card. I think this is definitely a card that, well, I mean, you would probably want to think about this when you build a deep strike deck, if you are inclined to do so. Moving on to our monsters. Why can I not remember their names? This is crazy. I should know these guys' names by heart. Tyranids. And we have Lictor von Lurker. Lictor Vine Lurker. Deep strike unit creature Leviathan, 1 hammer, which is not good. I really would have liked to see 2 hammer on this guy, but it's a 3/3. You can deep strike it for 2, and after you deep strike this unit, discard 1 card at random from your opponent's hand. Why? The Tyranids don't need a discard card. I really feel sorry for the Tyranids, because I mean their card pool just is kind of shocking. But hey, it is what it is. You can now randomly discard a card from your opponent's hand when you deep strike. Basically, for a 3 cost, 1 to put it in reserve, 2 to deep strike, You get a 3/3 with 1 command icon, and you discard a card from your opponent's hand. Again, if this had 2 hammers, I'll be over the moon. This would be a very cool card, and then I would definitely consider this, because then it does a couple of things for you. It's not going to take the command when it's in reserve, so then they could have just given it 0 hammer and make these 2 cards, and then you basically shut them down from whatever they would draw. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's still, you can hit like one of those important events somebody's holding in their hand, and it becomes better the less cards they have in their hands. But with Ominous Wind and other cards like this, it's quite possible. Like Chaos Player can easily have like 10 cards in their hand. What does a 1 random gonna change? I mean, probably not much. And then we have Invasion Site. This is a 0 cost location. Okay, so that's a good start, a 0 cost location. It is unique, so you can only have 1 out in play. Reaction: after an elite unit you control is destroyed, sacrifice this support to gain X resources. X is equal to that unit's printed cost. It's kind of the same as that Astra Militarum one that we looked at earlier. The Dev serves the Emperor, but at least this works on your elite units. It's not going to work on your Synapse creature because it doesn't have a printed cost, so forget about that immediately. What other elites you're going to run on top of that? Hard to say. There's obviously a couple of good elites there for the Tyranids, but again, why couldn't this be a 0 cost event? Like the Death Serves the Emperor. Now you're basically telegraphing it to your opponent, like, hey, go after my cheapest elite unit, because I'm going to be sacking my invasion site because I have another 2 in my hand I can't do anything with. So please take it out so I can at least regain the money I've already put into that unit anyway in the first place. So again, you're not making any money on this. At least it doesn't cost anything. But you've already invested that money. All you do is you recover it. But again, your opponent's going to be able to play around this because it's a fucking support. I don't know, man. I think that sucks. Okay, and finally we have our on that robot, what's it called? Pyramid guys, Pyramid Keepers. Pharaohs here. So we got Risen Warriors. On the face is a 3 cost unit, and you get a 2/2 with no command icons. But the catch here is that you can put it into reserve for 1, and then you can deep strike it for free. So for 1 to get a 2/2 is not bad. Actually, I know that the Necrons have a similar card with kind of similar, like it's again, it's a 1 cost card, I think, and you get a 2/2 with no commands. So it kind of does something similar to that. The soldier trait can be useful in some circumstances, but it's a cheap unit. It's a cheap beater, and that's about it. It's not going to take commands for sure, but you kind of get, again, you kind of get an eager recruit that you must play at the beginning of the battle and the planet. It's okay. It's okay. And our final last card is Quantum Shielding. 2 cost attachment, hardpoint, attached to a Necron vehicle unit you control, and that the attached unit gets +2 HP. Interrupt: when this card is discarded as a shield card, attach it to the shielded unit instead of discarding it if eligible. Brilliant. Brilliant card. Really cool card. You can't run it in many decks because it has to go onto a Necron vehicle. There's like 2, maybe 3 that this guy can be particularly useful on. But I think this card wants to go specifically. Now might be, I might correct myself when I see the card itself. Anyway, the first question is finding it. But I can see this card doing some really good work on the Dread command barge. First of all, this guy is an absolute beast when it comes to commands. You can discard a non-Necron card to move this guy along. Obviously, this is a hard point, so you can go on it. You can get it out for free, put it on this guy, plus 2 HP. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I mean, it's nothing insane, don't get me wrong, but then there aren't many things that are insane that came out in the last Warlord cycle. So here we go, guys. This is it. We have now completed this mini-series of looking at the Warhammer 40k Conquest final Warlord pack here with Jane Zar. There's actually been quite a few decent cards in here. Nothing mind-blowing really, but there's a good combo there with the Orcs, with the Chaos. I think Jane Zar is an interesting Warlord to build around, definitely bringing in a controlling element. So you run her with Nullify, you run her with Gift of Isha, you run her with Doom. It's already a good package. And yeah, this is it for this series. Finally, we can close it down now, and I now have a playset of all the Warhammer Conquest cards that came out by Fantasy Fine Games. I might start to look into the Apoka stuff later on. If I do, I'm of course going to share it with you guys, just in a similar fashion as this. If I get a print run out, then I'll perhaps crack it with you guys, have a look at the cards in this specific bubble. Until next time, guys, thanks for tuning in. Busty and signing out. Peace.